All right, so we welcome you guys back from spring break. Happy Easter. We're going to jump right in where we left off in GoMath. We had just gotten done balancing equations and solving for the variables. And so today's lesson is GoMath's approach on this strategy, plus they're going to work into the problems of real-world word problem strategy, which you'll see in just a second. All right, so what they did to describe this is they used the little plus and minuses to solve this problem here, which we did during the last week of our online learning, and that was balancing right to subtract the x on both, and we would have 2x left over here, and then we have our numbers, right, that we want to bring over there, so we add it, and so that is shown here in terms of the pluses and minus, so that might be something you want to look into. Personally, I think it's a little bit more confusing than just using the straight numeric math that we did on the right. But this is a really important strategy. Again, we're going to continue to practice this, and we'll up the level of difficulty as the weeks go as well. So let's take a look at a real-world example now. So example 1, Andy's rental car charges a fee of $20 plus an additional $30 per day to rent a car. Buddy's rental car charges an initial fee of $36 plus an additional $28 per day. For what number of days is the total cost charged by the companies the same? All right, so you'll see this a lot as you guys get older. When you're going to be making financial decisions, you're going to be looking at two different situations. Which one is the best for the number of hours? And so in this way, you can see which one over the long run is a better value than the other. But in this case, you want to know when is it the same, then you could use this to make your decision from that. You can see the examples here that they break down step by step. All right, Andy's rental car is $20 right away plus $30 a day. So let's make that our variable, 30D, right, equals, in this case, Buddy's is $36 at first, and then it's $28 a day. And so let's solve now. Like I told you guys, that strategy, your bigger D is here, so let's move our D's over to that side. So I'm going to subtract 28 out over here, which will subtract 28D over here. That leaves me with 2D. So I have 20 plus 2D equals 36. Now I want to move that 20 to the other side, so I do that here. So I have 16 equals 2D. Now I need to divide both sides by 2. And so I have D equals 8. All right, so that is 8 on the 8th day. There will be the same amount of costs. And so you would use this now to make your decisions, right? If you're going to do it less than that, let's say you're going to do it for 5 days, you would plug that in to see which one had the better rate, and you would use that to make your decision. So let's look at this real-world example. A tank holds 256 gallons, but is leaking at a rate of 3 gallons per week. A second water tank holds 384 gallons, but is leaking at a rate of 5 gallons per week. After how many weeks will the same amount of water be? Will the amount of water in the two tanks be the same? All right, so we write our two sides right. 256 is leaking, right? So we're subtracting 3 gallons per week. So we could do this, 3G. On the second tank is 384, but is leaking at a rate of 5 gallons per week. After how many weeks will the amount of water in the two tanks be the same? So you can see those are your tanks, right? They wouldn't be the same to start because the one on the right would have the bigger value, but because of the leaking in gallons, they will eventually be equal. All right, so how do we determine this? All right, so we would start with our variable again. You can see that we have both of them over there, and if I add my 5 to the other side, it's going to be positive, right? Because my value, my absolute value is bigger here, so I should bring them over there. So I'm going to add the opposite, So in this case now I have 2G. I can get rid of this, and now I'm going to move the 256 over here by subtracting it on both sides. That will cancel this out. So I borrow 8, 2, and 1. There I am. I want to get G, my variable, by itself, so I'm going to divide both sides by 2 to cancel this out. And hopefully you guys can do this in your head. Dividing by 2, right? We can go from left to right. So that's 64 equals G. All right, so after 64 weeks, the amount will be the same. So now they want you guys to think of a situation where could 150 plus 25x equals 55x. So I would say, a really good example for this is if somebody is getting paid something to do a job. All right, so person one, let's sort of think of something somebody wants to come in and paint your house. So the first person on the left, so they're going to ask for $150 to start the job and then $25 an hour. Right, and the second person would be charging $55 an hour. It might seem like kind of strange, right? But this is usually going to be now in a project that takes a lot of time. So the higher the X, that person right here was going to have the lower rate, right? And so that would be advantage to go with the person that wants that money up front. All right, so that's how you would do that. That's a real world problem to then you could solve for X to see when they would be the same. And that's breaking it down there. You can see GoMath talks about painting the house again, the two different rates, and how many hours would a job have to take for their fee to be the same. You put the two equal to one another again, so I already started that over here, so I might as well finish it. So I'm going to change the color here. Let's get rid of 25x on this side, and then I'll take away 25x over here, so that leaves me with 30x. And they're keeping the numbers friendly for today, which is good. And you can see how many 30s go into 50. Since we have our zeros here, we can do this. How many 3s go into 15? And that would be 5. So after 5 hours, the rates of the two would be the same. All right. For a real-world situation, they could be modeled by the equation. So kind of the same idea, right? First person there charges $30 an hour to work on something. The second person charges $48 just to start, and then it's $22 an hour. And so they're going to ask you at what point will they be the same. All right, so we're going to solve for x. And so we would do that. We get rid of 22x on this side. We do the same on this side. So we're left with 8x equals 48. Divide both sides by 8. And then I'm left with 6. So x equals 6. And at that rate, both sides would be the same. All right, so you can see our practice. Once again, we did this the other day, just balancing the two sides and doing the same here. All right, so if you want to work on that and then check your work, which I'll put on in just a second, you could. Here's another rate problem, right, that you have somebody making $120 to start plus 25 times each hour. When would it be the same as somebody charging $45 each? Let's take a look at this word problem here. Membership is $25 per month, and personal training sessions are $30 each. That's at Silver Gym. At Fit Factor, membership is $65 per month, and personal training sessions are $20 each. In 1 month, how many personal training sessions would Sarah have to buy to make the total cost at the two gyms equal? So she's making, again, a decision based off of the two. So she wants to know what each of the sessions would be. And if this is guided practice, if you guys want to do your work, and then check it with what I have just to make sure that you're doing it right. I'll just do it to the side here, and then we'll move on to independent practice. I do notice on the views every single lesson, I know some of you guys aren't watching these videos every week, and that's fine. I would recommend watching at least a little bit of it just for the explanation of the problems. And I know a lot of you guys are pretty bright in math, so you don't need all of the instruction. But at least, for the strategy part of it is recommended. So I'm going to solve these as the video goes. You can feel free to stop it because the next piece is the independent practice. And then make sure you're balancing yourself appropriately inside of the problems, and then make sure that you're answering what they're asking for in terms of the variable. So for those of you guys that are still with me, I'm going to solve here. My first problem is x plus 4 equals minus x minus 4. So I want to get rid of this on this side. So what I do is I add an x to it. So I'm going to add my x to that side. So now I have 2x plus 4 equals minus 4. Now I want to get rid of this. So I'm going to subtract it on both sides. So 2x equals 2 negative 4s, negative 8. Divide both sides by 2. And I get negative 4 is x. Number 2, all right, I'm going to balance both sides. So 2 minus 3x equals minus x minus 8. All right, I want to get my x positive, so I'm going to move this over to this side. So I'm going to add 3x. So adding 3x to minus 1x is going to leave me with positive 2x minus 8 equals 2 on this side. So now I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to add 8 to both sides. That leaves me with 10 equals 2x, and then I divide both sides by 2. I get 5 for x. I'm going to erase the work side here for our last two problems. All right, so our two gym examples. So we have $25 a month, $30 a session for a session equals this one, it's $65 a month, and this one is $20 for the session. So let's put the two equal to one another, right? So I have 30s over here, and so I want to keep that positive, so I'm going to move this one over. So I'm going to minus 20s, minus 20s. That leaves me with 10s. 25 is on this side, 65 is on that side. I'm going to get rid of that by subtracting. I'm going to get rid of that by subtracting. That leaves me with 40. 10s equals 40. All right, divide both sides by 10. And S equals $4 a session. But 4 sessions. 4 equals S. And then there's another rate again, real world situation when somebody is going to provide a service to you. We would put the two together again. So we subtract 25x from both sides. So that's 120 equals 45x minus 25x. That's 20x. Hopefully mental math for you guys now, right? Counting by 20s into 120. So x equals 6. I've got one more example here, real world situation. Once again, so now we're subtracting something out. That's another, since we're minusing by 10, think back to that first example where we're leaking gallons, right? So in that situation, that first tank started, then every hour it's leaking 6 gallons. In the second one it's a bigger tank, but it's leaking at 10 gallons an hour. And then you could put the two together. And again, for those of you guys that need to see the example, I'll just solve this as you're watching. Alright, so I want my value to be bigger, right? So if I move that over there, it's going to make that negative. I don't want to do that, so I'm going to subtract 100 from both sides. So that equals 60 minus 10x. Now I'm going to, on this side, I'm going to add the 10x on both sides to cancel it here. So 10x and negative 6x is 4x equals 60. Divide both sides by 4. X equals 15, right? 60 divided by 4 is 15. All right, so we do this in every type of problem that we do. All right, so for purposes of today, you guys are going to be doing independent practice here. And be careful here. We had mistakes like this the last time we did it when it says 2 less than 3 times the number. So the 2 less is after the 3 times the number, right? On that first day of practice, those of you guys that were doing the problems, you were doing this to start, and it was throwing everything off, okay? So make sure you guys are reading the problems carefully. Here's our 2 different situations. Again, if you wanted to get a dog sitter, which is the better deal? When are the rates equal? And apply the strategy to all of them.